Harold Gus Edwards flew in the First World War and later was one of the first officers in the Royal Canadian Air Force. During the Second World War, he rose to the rank of Air Marshal and served as Air Officer Commanding-in-Chief, RCAF Overseas, working for Canadianization of RCAF squadrons. Harold Edwards was born in England on December 24, 1892, and with his parents, Kate and Will, and his brother Ben, came to Glace Bay, Nova Scotia in 1903. Leaving school at 14, Harold worked in the coal mines as a trapper boy, an underground job of these boys, opening ventilation doors for ponies, pulling coal wagons from the mine. But he continued his education studying at home on his own, developing a lifelong practice of self-study and learning. With the outbreak of the First World War in 1915, Harold was accepted into the Royal Naval Air Service as a probationary flight sub-lieutenant and sailed for England in February 1916. Upon his arrival at Portsmouth, England, he was asked if he was related to the famous American songwriter, musician, and vaudeville performer Gus Edwards, whose songs are still heard today. In jest, Harold replied, "I am Gus Edwards," and thus became known as Gus for the rest of his life. With only 53 minutes of training with an instructor and less than 6 hours overall in the air, Gus was posted to operational flights. With 3 Naval Wing of the Royal Naval Air Service, Gus was based in France, near the German border, and while there, his operational flights took him over enemy territory with mixed results. But while still in training, he survived various mishaps, including a crash, with injury requiring the amputation of the little toe on his left foot. Gus's mementos of the time include photos of the flying machines and the men who flew them, such as Raymond Collishaw, an ace with 60 victories, one of the first to be inducted into Canada's Aviation Hall of Fame. And along with Gus Edwards and 940 other Canadians is included in Alan Snowy's book about those who served with the RNAS. In April 1917, Gus's Sopwith 1.5 Strutter was shot down, and following a brief escape, he was imprisoned for the rest of the war. In 1920, Gus Edwards returned to Canada, accepted as a flight lieutenant in the newly formed Canadian Air Force, and like other pilots at Camp Borden, Ontario, he received further flying training. He returned to flying in the 1920s when the Air Force was using the Curtiss HS-2L flying boat, pioneering Air Force missions that included aerial photography and blazing new routes at a time when flying boats were used for forest fire patrols and transporting sick traders, trappers, farmers, and Indigenous people. With the formation of the Royal Canadian Air Force on April 1, 1924, Gus became one of the first officers in the new force of 68 officers and 307 other ranks. While posted to Ottawa, Gus met Beatrice Coffey, whom he married in 1924, and the couple spent 3 years in London when Gus was posted to the Air Ministry there and attended a staff course at the Royal Naval College. Gus and Bea became parents in 1926 with the arrival of their son Billy, and daughter Suzanne would arrive in 1931. Bea was able to travel with Gus to Europe when official business took him there and provided opportunity for sightseeing. Returning to Ottawa in 1929, now a squadron leader, Gus was posted to Nova Scotia in 1934 to oversee development of RCAF Station Dartmouth, now 12-wing Shearwater, and assumed command of No. 5 Flying Boat Squadron, consisting of 5 detachments in eastern Canada. Back in Ottawa in 1938, Gus was posted as Senior Staff Officer, Air Personnel and Records at Air Force Headquarters, and by 1941, when he greeted His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent in Canada, Gus carried the rank of Air Vice Marshal. In Canada, the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan saw the building of over 100 new airfields, and in 1941, Gus was back in England again, attending to personnel matters of Canadians serving in the plan. A year later, Gus was then Air Marshal Edwards, as Air Officer Commanding-in-Chief, RCAF Overseas, committed to a program of Canadianization to form distinct RCAF squadrons, and saw the formation of 6 RCAF fighter wings and formation of 15 bomber squadrons. In England, official duties performed by Gus had included leading the RCAF contingent in the coronation parade for King George VI in 1937, and in 1943 speaking at Trafalgar Square on the occasion of the first Canadian-built Lancaster bomber, which was delivered to England. Gus's official residence was Highdale, while serving as Air Officer Commanding-in-Chief, and travel in England took him to the town of his birthplace, Chorley, Lancashire, where he spoke to air cadets, and visited his uncle, Bill Warburton, of the Home Guard, a retired captain of the British Army who had fought at Gallipoli in the First World War. Shown here being invested by the French ambassador, Gus was also invested by King George VI as a companion of the Most Honorable Order of the Bath, and received other awards from the United Kingdom, Czechoslovakia, and the United States. On December 31, 1943, Gus returned to Canada, replaced as Air Officer Commanding-in-Chief, returning to his family, and retiring from the Air Force in 1944. With his wife Bea, he enjoyed only a few years in their Quebec home after retirement, before declining health took its toll, and he died on February 23, 1952. A career airman, Gus Edwards served Canada in uniform for 29 years, and his life story has been told by his daughter Suzanne in both a biography and a book for young readers. Air Marshal Harold Gus Edwards served Canada through 2 world wars, attaining the highest rank in the RCAF. He was inducted into Canada's Aviation Hall of Fame at ceremonies held in Montreal on June 14, 2012.